Welcome to Perspectives in Adventist Education. I'm your host, Stephen Brawley, Director of Secondary Education and Accreditation at the North American Division. Adventist education started in the late 1800s and has grown to operate programs from early childhood, elementary, secondary, and university levels, becoming the largest Protestant private school system in the world. Our graduates have become prominent thought leaders in all fields. Yet, few outside of the system know who we are and what we do. This series will seek out current voices to share how we are facing educational questions with an Adventist perspective. Today, let's join Charles Tapp, president of the Potomac Conference, as he speaks with Lorin Koch about AI in the classroom.
Hi, I'm Charles Tapp, and I'm here at the Educators Convention for the NAD in hot Phoenix, Arizona. And we have a very special guest with us today. We're going to talk about something very interesting. You hear a lot of it in the news today, so we're going to get some insight into what this is all about. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us about what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, my name is Lorin Koch, and I'm a longtime secondary educator. And the topic that I was presenting about here at the conference is generative AI, artificial intelligence, using ChatGPT.
Now, for all of us who are novices, what is AI?
Well, AI, artificial intelligence, is computer networks or computers that people have programmed to sound like humans as much as possible. So it's computer where people can type in a question or a prompt, and then the computer will respond, and they're trying to train it to sound as much like humans as it possibly can.
Now, can you take someone's voice, take their audio, recorded audio, and then make them sound like someone else?
That does exist, yeah. There are definitely those, and there have been a lot of deep fakes in the media where people have videos even of them saying something or singing something. ChatGPT, the one that I presented about, is just text-based, though. So you type something in and it types something back. There are also image generator ones that are kind of fun, too, where you type in some text and it can create an image based on the text that you put in.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, how can that be used in the classroom?
Well, a number of different ways that you can use the text in the classroom. I use it to generate ideas. Just as a teacher, I can say, give me a sequence for a topic that I want to study, or outline a book. Maybe we're studying a book, so I can ask it to give me the bullet points. You can ask it to explain something at different levels, like explain a concept for a 12th grade audience, like maybe they're taking an anatomy class, and so explain what ligaments are for a 12th grade audience. Or if you're an elementary teacher, you can say, explain what ligaments are for a 4th grade audience, and it'll give you some text.
Now, what about students who may use AI to write their own term papers?
Yeah, that's been a big thing, hasn't it, in the news all year, ever since this technology started coming out in November of 2022. You'd see these article headlines that would say things like, is this the end of the college essay, or the end of homework, or something like that. So students have done it. Some of our students at my school got caught using it last year. There's a really big temptation to do it because it can save a lot of time if you put it in there. So the temptation is there. Teachers have to learn to explain it to students, what it does and how it works and what its shortcomings are. Try to convince them that it's not worth it for them personally, that the inherent loss is that you shortchange yourself in growth.
Now, I see how this can be best used in the media, but what about in a classroom setting? Yeah,
I think there are different ways that you can use ChatGPT with your students. One of the best ways, I think, is in brainstorming ideas. I'm an English teacher for the most part by trade, so having students generate ideas for a paper or outlining something would be really good for that. It's good with explaining concepts that maybe a Google search couldn't exactly explain. An example of that is I noticed that the word multiplication has an extra syllable in it that doesn't necessarily make sense there, because you multiply, you don't multiplicate. So I asked Google that question, explain why there's this extra K syllable in the word multiplication. And Google couldn't give me anything, but ChatGPT explained it for me.
Really?
Yeah, told me that it's from the original root in whatever language it came from. So nuanced questions, it can be helpful for those. It's good with translating because it knows different languages.
So I assume all of this has to be pre-programmed.
Yeah, it's programmed by people. Actually, the interesting thing about it is that the people who program ChatGPT don't know what it's doing.
Really?
And that sounds really weird to say that, but they didn't give it rules. What they did was they gave it all this text, and then they said, figure out how to sound like a human. So they don't know what it's doing under the hood. So basically the understanding is that it's taking all the text from online, Wikipedia, blogs, books, and stuff that are online, and then it kind of creates percentage likelihood that a word is going to follow another word. And so when you type something in, it's like, well, people said this, but how it gets to that conclusion is kind of hidden from people's understanding because the computers don't explain it.
Now, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories of how this has really impacted your students?
Yeah, I was a yearbook sponsor, and we had some parts of the yearbook where I think that it can be a challenge to know exactly what to write for yearbook content. And so we plugged it in. We said, this is what our theme is. Can you give us 2 paragraphs about this topic related to our theme? Our theme was the history of our school because it was our school's 125th anniversary.
Really?
So we asked it, what was life like 125 years ago? Can you give us a paragraph? And that was good brainstorming for coming up with stuff like that.
Now, what about as it relates to Adventist Christian education?
Yeah, I think something really interesting about ChatGPT and other things like that is that they were programmed by somebody. This isn't life that came to be outside of people's understanding.
Right.
So I think that from a Christian perspective, we actually have a unique understanding on that, thinking of something as being designed for a particular purpose.
Okay.
That thinking of the design that goes into it, I think, gives us an interesting perspective on it.
With that example, then, I guess you can say the creator is always greater than the creation. Now, does that apply to AI as well?
In some ways, I think it does, for sure, because the people are the one that are trying to control it. You've probably read articles about how some people are terrified that AI is going to take over. And the way it is right now, it doesn't seem likely because it makes super simple mistakes.
Right.
Like, someone asked it, how many N's are there in the word mayonnaise? And it says 4. And so then you say, well, explain that to me. So it's like, well, there's the first N and then the second N, and then it's spelling the word wrong and stuff like that. So it probably shouldn't really scare people too much at this point. But to your question, AI is way faster at generating ideas. It can come up with stuff way faster than a human can. So is it greater? Sure. It has the ability to think about things, and the AI doesn't.
So AI, then, is not the end-all, but a tool.
Yeah, think of it as a tool.
Yeah.
That can be used for various purposes. I think every technology that comes in kind of has that moment where people are like, oh, is this going to end everything? And then people understand it more and understand how to use it. There definitely is valid concern with AI.
And some of those concerns would be...
Well, the big concern is that it takes over somehow.
Right.
That AI somehow gains some form of sentience and realize that the humans are standing in its way, which is not the best. But maybe on a smaller individual level, I think AI. One of the dangers is that people rely so much on AI to make decisions for them that they lose the ability to do it for themselves, or they rely so much on the decision that AI says, and then they put that into action. You say, what should I do in this situation? And it gives you advice, and then you do it, and it might have a horrible result because the reasons for why it says that are kind of obscured.
Now, I remember back in the day, and I say back in the day because I'm a little older than you, when these hand calculators first came out.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying, that's going to make us lazy, but it became a tool. So So AI, I guess you would say, could be used in the same way?
Yeah, I think so. And that's a really good analogy, too, because I'm sure that even before digital calculators, people probably said that about a slide rule. And, people probably said, well, you're not always going to have a calculator with you. And then, well, I do. I have my phone. I always do have a calculator with me. So
So what would you say would be the greatest asset to having this AI technology in our Adventist schools?
Well, from a teacher's perspective, it can do some difficult things for me. It can save me a lot of time when I'm conceptualizing an idea, coming up with a new lesson plan unit or something like that.
Okay.
It can help me write difficult communication, like if I have to write a letter home for some student who had gotten in trouble for a pattern of behavior or something like that. Excuse me. I can have AI help me write an appropriate, polite letter.
Right.
So it can save time and hassle. Another idea that came up in studying this was that maybe you need to write something home, but you're in the middle of the feelings that you're feeling anger about it, and so you type something up, and then you probably should temper the tone somewhat before you send it. You can paste it in and have AI say, temper my tone, make it sound more polite and stuff like that. So,
really?
Yeah, just tasks that don't even have anything to do with teaching in the classroom but are nevertheless part of a teacher's job can be really streamlined.
Now, if I'm a parent and I hear that AI is coming into my student's classroom, my child's classroom, and I'm kind of nervous about this, how would you alleviate some of that?
Boy, that's a really important point, that parents hear about it just like we all do.
Right.
And so they might not know what students are doing. I think that this whole last year, since this technology came out, has been a scenario where we all want to talk about it, but we don't know what to say. And so parents might want to talk about it with their kids, but they don't know what to say. They might not have any idea if students are using it in the classroom or to cheat or anything like that. So I think we need to get information out to parents about what it is, how it works, and explain, I might be using it in class for brainstorming this or that or the other thing. Here's some ideas for topics you can talk about with your kid if you want to find out if they're using it or something like that. You know, we had some students who got caught using it last year, and so the teacher sent a letter home, and there's no way of knowing how much the parents actually know about this. They may not know a thing about it, and so getting this letter is going to be like, what is this even talking about? This is something that had never entered my mind before this very moment.
So I guess the teacher, the school has to be extremely proactive in educating the parents on AI.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that being proactive about it is really beneficial, just to say, this is what's out there, I've learned a bit about it, this is what students have been using it for, and here's some examples. Here's what it does well, here's what it might not do so well. So reasons why not to use it, students. It might make up a reference.
Now, do you have any workshops in the school itself where parents can come and actually see how AI plays out in the classroom?
I haven't done anything like that, but that's really a good idea.
Yeah.
I've been working with some other teachers to develop a class for the ALC on this topic, the Adventist Learning Community.
Right.
And so we're going to go through what it is and how it works, show some examples of it, and talk about some of the ethical and moral implications of it, issues that might come up, and then how teachers can use it. But I think that a parent could get an account on ALC, Adventist Learning Community, and you know, do that course just to see what it is.
You think you'll have video content and all of that? So
yeah, we've already recorded upwards of 10 videos.
Really?
Yep, screenshot videos or us talking. So it's going together. I don't know exactly when it's going to be up, but it probably could be, you know, September-ish, 2023.
So all of that is already on ALC?
It's not live yet.
It's not live yet, okay.
It's in production.
Okay. Are there any places a parent can go now and find out more about AI and how to use it for their student?
Yeah, there are so many articles about there right now. You know, as this year has gone on, every time I've seen an article, I've bookmarked it to come back to later, and so I've learned a lot about this topic. Because it's so new, there's not a lot of research about it yet.
Right.
But, you know, I think just Googling, what does AI do? How are students using it? We'll get some articles now, because it's past the first wave. You know, the first wave, here's what it is, and everybody freaks out.
Right.
And then the second wave is, oh, so now let's understand this. And so the more feature articles rather than just the news articles. So that content is out there, and I think it's, you know, I found plenty of sites for teachers, so I'm sure that there probably are sites like that for parents as well.
Now, do you have any of those sites for teachers that you can share?
I can. I have a bunch of links, and I can send those if interested.
Okay, great.
And I have my presentation. I just did a presentation on this topic just before I came here. So
now, in your presentation that you just did, what did you talk about there?
So I talked about what GPT is, what it does, how it works, how it's programmed, what it tries to give, what it's good at, what it's not so good at, how students have been using it to cheat and ways to kind of see as a teacher to kind of figure out whether it's GPT generated, AI generated text, and then some ideas for assignments that would be hard for GPT to do, that you can kind of subvert the desire to cheat.
Now, in your opinion, are there more positive things about the use of AI than negative?
I tend to be an optimist, and I tend to be the type who says, well, how can we use this? I don't want to hide from it. I can see that there's definitely some negatives or potential negatives, but I think if approached in the right way, it can be a really positive tool. It can be really helpful for students in a number of different ways, brainstorming and summarizing and generating ideas.
Okay.
I tend to say that there's probably more positive than negative, but to say that, I don't discount the very real potential negatives that can come out of it.
So again, the onus is upon the school, the teacher, to educate the parents.
I think so. I think it can be really beneficial coming from a teacher, especially if the teacher has done some study on this, and coming up with a new policy, because we have our plagiarism policies, but the technology didn't exist when we wrote those plagiarism policies, so we need to put that in there in the official policies in our handbooks and stuff like that, and then piggyback on that to kind of explain some of the information.
Now, that's an interesting thought, because this technology didn't exist before, but now it's very prevalent in our society, which means it's going to be available to everyone.
It is.
So then our schools, our principals, our administration, we need to sit down and develop some new policies.
Yeah.
You know, we already have some in our handbooks for plagiarism and all of that.
That's right.
So there will be potentially then a policy for AI.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And so that means that it's not just teachers who have to know about it, because if a principal is having to enforce a rule or explain something to a parent that comes in, they're going to have to understand it.
Right. So everyone has to be involved in this, and everyone has to be educated, from the administration, the teachers, the parents, and of course, our students.
Yep.
Wow, interesting topic. Now, in talking to our parents today, if you could choose one takeaway that you wanted them to really hone in on, something that you feel will resonate with them based on what we've talked about today, what would that one thing be?
I think my biggest recommendation would be try it for yourself. I would encourage them to get on ChatGPT or Google Bard and just try it out, to see what it does, to see how quick it is, to see how thorough the answers are, to get an understanding of it. You can't really understand it until you've used it, and once you've used it, you see, oh wow, how this just opens up a world of possibility in both positive and negative for the students.
And that'll probably alleviate a lot of the fear.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And encouraging parents to have conversations with their kids. Have you heard about this? Have you used it? Have you used it in class? Do you know of anyone who's got caught using it? Stuff like that. If parents understand it, it'll give them the tools to be able to advise their kids.
Now, here's a thought. Is there an AI book for dummies?
I'm not sure there is yet. I think it's too new.
Okay.
That's a great question. Something to look into for sure.
Yeah. Any last thoughts?
I've been really fascinated with this. I've been following someone on Twitter who has been involved in this for years, 5+ years. And so when it came out for individuals to use, I tried to jump on that and get in the first wave of users. But it used to be 5 years ago, people would post about it and I'd be like, oh, that's so amazing that these individuals have the access to this, and just now everybody does. That it happens so fast, and now it's just part of our world, and it's just shocking to me to see how quickly that process can happen with new technologies. One of the interesting things about this is ChatGPT was the most quickly implemented new technology ever.
Really?
Yes. When Facebook came out, in order to reach 1 million users, it took them 2 years.
Right.
When Instagram came out, it took 2.5 months for them to reach 1 million users.
Right.
ChatGPT took 5 days.
Now, why do you think that is?
it's just such a fascinating thing. It's something that nobody had ever seen before, and maybe they had seen people do it. Just the buzz around it was everywhere, and people saw that it was fun, it was funny, it was interesting, and so they wanted to get in on it.
So what I hear you saying then is AI is coming to a classroom near you.
Yeah, if it's not already there, it's coming.
If it's not already there. Well, thank you so much for our conversation today.
Thank you very much.
And again, the takeaway is, parents, don't be afraid.
Yep.
Learn as much as you can about it and get your child involved.
Yep.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
God bless
Appreciate
you.
it.
This is Stephen Brawley, your host. Thanks for listening. Join us again next time as we explore more perspectives in Adventist education.
An Adventist Learning Community podcast.